All right, Jastin. A through Z.
T.
I have something for T. So, a few weeks ago, or like a couple of weeks ago, whatever, one Mr. Iced T, I believe is his name, Iced T, put a picture on like Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and was like, hey, season whatever of, he said, it was like season whatever of SVU, like filming, and somebody on Twitter goes, did they write SVU back to normal yet? It started to go woke. And so Ice-T responded, what the F is woke? Like I give a fuck. Which I love that in the first sentence was what the F is woke. And the second sentence is, I don't give a fuck. I love that.
That's right.
Just the way that happened. So yes, I love the mixture of F and fuck. It's a very, very eloquent thing that weirdly enough just works when Ice-T does that. It works. I don't know why. If anybody else did it, I'd be mad, but he pulls it off. Anyway, somebody responded to him then and said, woke means tearing down my John Wayne statues and forcing me to erect a Spider-Man fountain that sprays gay beer on my lawn that turns it into AstroTurf. All right, so that's what somebody said when Ice-T said, what is woke? And Ice-T had the perfect response to that, which was, that sounds dope. F John Wayne. God, I loved it. I loved every second of that.
That's tight.
It's just fantastic as fuck.
That sounds dope. I just totally see him saying that too.
I just loved it with
amazing.
With a fuck John Wayne. Like, yes, thank you. Just a man after my own heart. I stopped watching SVU a while back. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want to watch it again. It sounds exciting.
The woke SVU?
Hell yeah. Apparently, they're just running around tearing down John Wayne statues. I can get behind that. I'll watch that for an hour every week. Every week, just Ice-T tearing down a statue of John Wayne. Fuck yeah. That sounds like why, the reason like why our country was founded. So yes, that was an utterly fantastic little exchange. That was it. It was just a delightful little thing on Twitter, and I kind of loved it. And it just kind of tied back into, a running theme on this podcast, which is fuck John Wayne.
Totally fair.
Yeah. We do have a correction from our last episode. Heather stated that Channing Tatum and Zoe Kravitz are married. I think I might have agreed with that. We were wrong. They are just engaged. They are together. They are engaged. They are not married.
Yeah, my bad.
So I just wanted to make sure. Clarified that real quick. Couple of MCU related things. I don't know if I brought this up last week or not, but I'm bringing it up again. So Mahershala Ali, who was in Jurassic Park 7, has pictures of him in Jurassic Park 7. And still nothing from Blade. We have pictures of him in Jurassic Park 7. And we don't even have a working script for Blade. And in other Blade news, Marvel is reportedly considering the idea of just bringing Wesley Snipes back for Blade.
Wow.
So we might never get Mahershala Ali as Blade. Our Mahershala Ali Blade legacy might just be some dialogue at the end of the Eternals. Talking to Jon Snow.
That's a bummer. And I love Wesley Snipes' Blade, but I was looking forward to him doing it.
Yeah, I was curious to see what he would bring to the table, so it's interesting, kind of sucks for him, though. I'm sure he was excited about doing it as well. So that's
Yeah, but I think the key word in your statement was. I don't think you could be even excited about it no more, man. Like, they dicked you around for what, 5 years now?
yeah, and all the back and forth and the uncertainty. So yeah, maybe
And
maybe he'll be happy to hear that. Hey, it's not happening. He
and just
might actually be relieved.
how fucking hard is it? Blade kills vampires. How hard it can writing that script possibly be? Blade walks in a room, says a quip, kills some vampires. Blade walks in a room, says a quip, kills some vampires. Rinse and repeat like 8 times and you got a movie. What else could there possibly be? You literally could remake, and I know I've said this, you could remake Blade 1 and you just have Mia Goth instead of Steven Dorff and call it a day. Instead of it being some vampire blood god, just have it be an Asgardian blood god so it ties into the MCU. Bam, done. Like, what else? I don't understand. I don't understand. So, yeah, that's all the exciting Blade news. And then into a more somber note, James Earl Jones did pass away.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah, that was super sad. What an influential actor he was.
I mean, honestly, there is nobody born, before what, 2005, that wasn't influenced in some way, shape, or form by his voice alone. Just Darth Vader and Mufasa.
Yeah.
Just seep into everybody's lives. I mean, that is two of the more iconic characters in movies. I mean, especially Darth Vader, but like even to a degree, Mufasa. Like, you can't tell me that there's not like 2 or 3 generations of kids out there that weren't traumatized by that man's death. And then, you on top of that, you have him as the dad in Coming to America. You have him as the blind old man in The Sandlot. I mean, just so many things that this man is just in.
Oh, yeah.
And it just seeps into everything. Big star on Broadway, too. Did a lot of plays.
Remember Field of Dreams?
Yeah.
He was great in that.
So, I mean, that's just I just hope that, they don't just start AIing the fuck out of that man's voice. God, nothing can make me hate technology quicker than shit like that. Anyway, you guys ready for this? This big sequel action?
I'm ready.
Yeah.
This sequel just decades in the making. I think literally it's been, 30 years? Something like that?
Yep. Big 30.
Oh, man. It's got to be more than that, right? 35. Came out in 89, didn't it? When the fuck did Beetlejuice came out? 88 or 9? It's got to be 35 years then? Oof. Is 88 or 89?
88.
36 years. A sequel. 36 years in the making. Oh, man.
That's more than Top Gun.
It's close, though. Right up there with it. With that Maverick.
Mm-hmm.
Man. I wonder if it recaptures the magic like Maverick did. Let's find out, shall we?
anything but you. All right. Are you ready? Yep. Come on.
Cinema Slayers.
Do I look spooky with all the smoke?
It's pretty cool, actually.
Just kind of comes back with smoky Sterling. Hey, Cinefans, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Slayers podcast. I'm Sterling, and as always, I'm joined by Heather and Jastin. And tonight we're going to talk about what we like, didn't like, and everything in between with the new movie, Beetlejuice Squared. Beetlejuice 2. Whatever. As always, we will go through a spoiler-free recommendations and scores, and then into a more spoiler-centric section with time codes in the description to allow you to jump around if you so require in both audio and video formats. And with all that, Jastin, as our resident, I don't want to say Beetlejuice expert, resident Ghost with the most expert. I don't know, Jastin. Talk some Beetlejuice.
All right. So, where to begin? Well, maybe the best place to start is just with some things that we said whenever we went back and did our voted on fan essential review of the first Beetlejuice. And in that, I distinctly remember us saying that, I'll just speak from my perspective on it. I remember saying that I felt like that movie had some things about it that I thought were good. It had some potential as far as some of the dated references, the rapey Beetlejuice, some of the choices that it made, like going 45 minutes before Beetlejuice showed up. And I remember saying that I felt like the film was in need of a makeover. And if it could just do, and when this sequel was coming, if it could just update some things, do some different things with Beetlejuice, change the rapey approach, and maybe not have a first act that seemed like it lasted half the movie, and then, cram kind of and then cram the second and third acts together, then I would probably like it better. I do feel like when it came to this one, I do feel like there are things about this that I liked better than the first one. I think what they did with Beetlejuice, he's not the rapey Beetlejuice anymore. So obviously that was a good change. They kind of went away from that. It still has that same kind of humor, the dark humor that the first one had. So all the comedic timing and all the it felt like, it felt like a sequel to the first movie as far as just the tone, the way it was shot, everything like that. So I was fine with that. I do think that the addition of some of these actors, like Jenna Ortega, Monica Bellucci was in this, William Dafoe. I do think that overall, I liked them. I think that they helped this more than anything they did hurt it. I think that they added to this. I felt like all of them were kind of what they needed to be for the tone of this and what it is. The film didn't seem to take itself too seriously, so I think that was good. There are parts that I think are I guess, more serious within the message because the message is about, like, I guess, dealing with people who die and moving on and that kind of stuff. Which the first film had some similar beats to that. But I never felt like it got so serious that it was a drag. It always felt like it ended with kind of that Beetlejuicy dark humor that we know. Catherine O'Hara was again really good in this. I liked her in this. I thought that she was tight in this. Like, she had some really good moments. And we just get more of that, with Jenna Ortega, with Winona Ryder. So all of that I liked. I think that some of the choices Tim Burton made um were at least interesting enough to carry the movie. He went on ahead and pushed this 30 something years later. So it was kind of interesting to see where these characters wound up after 30 years removed from the first Beetlejuice. And when you see what everybody is doing, everything kind of felt in character. Like, it felt like, okay, this is probably what Lydia would be doing. This is, and then when you see what Deli is doing, you're like, okay, that's probably what she would be doing. Like, a lot of the choices that he made I think were good for what these characters were in the first film. And unlike some of the mistakes I talked about in the first film, Beetlejuice shows up quicker in this. He has a little bit more to do. We get a little bit more of his story, and now the tables have turned. They actually bring in someone who, without trying to spoil anything, is actually chasing him or trying to get to him. So that turned the tables a little bit. As far as it added kind of a thing to do for Beetlejuice that wasn't similar to what was happening in the first movie. So I think that made it a little different. So overall, I mean, there was really nothing about this that I hated. I mean, I didn't hate anything that I saw. So, I mean, I guess it was okay. Like, were there some plot holes and some things that some questions probably that it didn't answer? Yeah, but I mean, but nothing really felt like there was nothing so problematic, like with some of the problems I had in that first film, that I was like, this is bad or this is terrible or anything like that. I think it was, I don't think it's a great sequel. I don't think it's an awesome sequel or anything like that. But I do think it was a fine one. I think this is one where people, if you're a fan of the first Beetlejuice, you get the same kind of humor and comedy. They add a couple of new elements that make it feel different from the first movie. And there are some laughs. There were parts where I did laugh. There's another everybody's singing uncontrollably part. And I found it entertaining too. Maybe not as entertaining as the first time it was done, but it was entertaining nonetheless. And Michael Keaton is still very good at playing this character. He still has that zany kind of charisma and everything like that. And with the cleanup, and even though I understand Tim Burton saying, oh, he's not going to be politically correct in this or whatever. And to a certain extent, it is the same Beetlejuice. It's just the way he angled things with the same character, kind of, I guess, in it, because of how he angled things, cleaned up some of the problems that I had in the first movie. We're not going to whorehouses and looking under women's skirts. So, we kind of ditched all of that, which is a good thing. And overall, I think the female characters came off the main ones that we care about, which is Lydia and in this her daughter Astrid. I think they come off as pretty strong characters in this. I think they come off better in this, and I think overall the message is a solid one. So yeah, and it seems like for the most part the reception is people are liking this, and it did make quite a bit of money at the box office. It did pretty well at the box office. So, you know, I don't love this or anything, but it was all right, man. You know, I can't hate on it. You know, I got some of the things that I wanted that I said if they did, I would probably like it better. And they did do those things. So I liked it better. You know, I liked it better than that revisit that we did with the first movie. So yeah, that's where I stand on it. I think not quite. I'm not gonna. The first one we watched, I said I was sort of somewhere in the middle. This one, I'm not in the middle either. I think I'm above the middle. You know, I feel like it's above mid category, not well above. You know, I'm not giving it an A or a B, but it's passing. It's a passing grade for me.
Heather, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's very much just a fine movie. It's again, like, I don't love this movie. I don't particularly hate it. I do kind of hate some of the things that they do in the movie, but I agree with you, Jastin, in the sense that it has that Beetlejuice flair to it. It has that feel and the same tone that you're looking for this Beetlejuice movie. It was really nice to see a few of the returning characters. Like Catherine O'Hara, I mean, I love her, and I really love her in this. And kind of for me, as I think I've mentioned in other episodes before, but like Jenna Ortega tends to be the best thing about a movie she's in when I've seen her. And that's kind of the same here too. I feel like Jenna Ortega was the best part of this movie in this one. And I think I also just liked following her story a little bit more than I liked following some of the other storylines in the movie. I also love Winona Ryder. I've always been a huge fan of her, but I kind of slightly disagree with you on one point you made, Jastin. I wasn't a big fan of her character in this one, and it's not because it's Winona Ryder's fault. I don't like the characterization of her as much in this one, which we'll get into. I just think that they kind of did her dirty a little bit in this one. But I'll go into that more. But so I was a little bit let down by that. And I think even not let down by Beetlejuice, but I feel like there are certain things that he does. Like, there were some very silly moments that did make me laugh, especially with him. But I was expecting a little bit more over the top Beetlejuice in this one than we probably got. But again, glad that he showed up sooner than he did, all these things. And Michael Keaton is fantastic. They do address some of the, like, not really address it, but they at least call it out a little bit in this movie with the whole, problems we had with his rapey tendencies. But yeah, I did think that they had a lot going on in this story. I feel like they had multiple storylines happening here, and it was just cramming a lot into one. So I feel like it was a little bit overloaded in that way, because some of the things that they did or some of the storylines they followed, I don't really think were necessary. Or if they were done, they could have done a little bit less of them, just because I just don't think they were needed to develop this film the way that they were trying to with our big main players of the film. So that's mostly my issues with it, and just other choices they make that I really dislike, that I would say kind of brought my view of the movie down a little bit. But as a general rule, the movie itself it's fine, and again, I'm not like the hugest Beetlejuice fan of the first one. Like, that one is also just fine to me. So I wasn't expecting or like super excited or just anticipating this movie in any sort of way. So it's not like I was let down or anything like that in the regard of how good I was expecting this to be. So it kind of, levels out in my mind with it. It's a fine movie. There are things I liked more about this one than I did the first one, but there are things done in the first one better than in this one. They do try to recapture the magic of that first one a lot. It does fall a little bit more flat in this one on a lot of those points, but not enough to where you're just like, this is completely taking me out of the film. Other things might, but that specifically wouldn't. So yeah, I'm fine with this movie for the most part, other than certain things that they do that I would definitely either remove altogether or change how they're done. But as a general rule, I do think it was a fine movie and at least brings you a little bit more into the Beetlejuice world in like a more consistent, not more, but in a consistent manner. So yeah, that's what I got for now.
I think at its best, when this movie is in peak form, it's okay. When this movie is bad, it's pretty boring. And when this movie decides to spend a huge chunk of its time and energy showing the face of a man who is a child sexual predator as much as they possibly can, whilst also having that character, maybe not the actor, having the character in this movie as much as they possibly can, shoehorning it in, just so they can constantly keep saying how great of a character he was. Now they miss him so much. And every chance they get, they take that man's face and they make sure you see it over and over and over again. Openly admitting to you that if they had their choice, they would have said child sexual predator in this movie if they felt like they could have gotten away with it, because they did their damnedest to do so. And by that, I mean the dad. The actor that played the dad, it's like Jeffrey Jones or something like that. I don't fucking remember that asshole's name. Yeah, like convicted sex offender, child porn, inappropriate things with a 14-year-old boy, all kinds of shit. I mean, I don't really need to go on. I went off on this in the Beetlejuice episode, but yes, they just loved showing that man's face every chance they got. Oh, we have to have this painting of him. We have to have his face on the headstone. We have to have this whole claymation thing. We have to constantly show that man's face and then also say, oh, isn't he such a great man? That's all I kept saying in this fucking movie. Anything it did that was good, they would go out of their way real quick to erase it. By just going, fuck, man. I know the actor that played this character is a monster of a human being, but we just got to reference him again. Over and over again. It's appalling. It's abhorrent. It's disgusting. It's unnecessary. And it truly makes me wonder if Tim Burton thought he could have gotten away with it if he would have actually fucking had that man back. Because I truly, truly believe so. You could have had the character die, been the point, had the funeral, whatever, all this other bullshit, whatever. You didn't need to figure out a way to kind of still have the character be in the movie as much as you can. Oh, it's not the actor, but wink, wink, it is. It's not, but it is. Show the man's face. You didn't need all that. You didn't need all that shit in this fucking movie constantly. That was a choice. And fuck this movie for that. Recommendations and scores?
Yeah.
Yep. Recommendations and score.
Nah, fuck this movie. If it didn't have all that shit, I probably would have given it a 60. Has all that shit, it gets a 10. Heather, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, and that honestly was one of my other big issue with the film. It was like, there's a way they could have told the story of the dad in certain ways better than they did in this because of that. Yeah, like everything that you were saying is like the reason why I'm like disappointed in this movie and why the movie did lose points for me is also for that similar reason. I mean, do I recommend it? I do agree a little bit with you, Jastin, as far as like, if you are a big fan of the first Beetlejuice movie, you are probably going to end up liking this one in some capacity. So, I mean, and it's hard though, because it's like, I don't want to recommend a movie that, you know, shows a predator's face all the time. So in that regard, no, I don't recommend it. But I will say that, if for some reason, like you did not know that that was a thing or whatever it was, and you went into this and enjoyed it and liked it, aside from that piece of it, or if you were a fan of the first one, I do think that you would have enjoyed this movie. So it's hard. It's just really hard to recommend a movie knowing what we know, right? But kind of like what you said with like, if they hadn't have done all of that, the score would be different. And my recommendation would be like, yeah, definitely at least see it because it's the sequel. So kind of just take that for what it is. But my score I'm going to give it is, let me see. I'm going to give it 50 Bob dressed as Beetlejuice out of 100.
Jastin, what about you?
Cool. And it's interesting, like, as you guys were talking about that, the interesting thing is, if you are, so looking at it from y'all's perspective, I totally understand that. But here's just another point of view. Just another kind of perspective I want to offer. If you are the writer and the creator of this character, you didn't. And then an actor plays this character. And then we come to find out he gets in trouble and is a monster or kills people. In this case, is a sexual predator or whatever. As a creator of that character, is there a part of you that goes, well, the actor did that and is guilty, but my character that I created is not guilty. That actor is. Or so then do you go, okay, in this film where they were a family and this was the father and everything like that, if he died, they're a family. They're going to talk about this, the father, the character. They're going to talk about him. They're going to have to mourn him. They're going to have to. So what is the best way to, because the character is innocent. The actor is not. So all I'm saying is, could there be a perspective out there where people say, well, I get why the actor was not in the movie, but the character is going to mean something different to these other characters in this film. So I think there will be some people, and like I'm saying, I'm not going to get into the right and wrong of it. It's not really a debate I want to have. I just want to throw another perspective out there.
Oh yeah, no.
But
I
could see, so I could see there being some people that go, yeah, that motherfucker's not in here because he's a terrible motherfucker. But the character that this writer, that this director, that these people created didn't do anything. So maybe what they did was the best way to handle it, where you don't have the actor in it because the actor is a motherfucker, so he can't come back. But we have to treat the character a certain way because he was the father of this family. And he's dead. This is about dead people. You go to a place where people are dead. How do you avoid him not being there? You know what I mean? So maybe to a creator, to somebody like that, I could see sort of the conundrum of, well, my character is innocent. This actor is guilty. So maybe and I understand if the actor plays him, that's his face, that's still his costume, that's he, even though he, that he's playing a character, that's still his face and everything like that. So I get that part of it. But damn, man, but I think about the person who created the character and everything like that. And it's like, well, fuck, man, it's my character.
I mean, I can literally address everything you just said. As far as, you're right, the character is not the same as the actor. Cool. You can have some of that. You can even have that claymation part. The claymation part didn't bother me as much as literally that man's face every chance they got. You know what I mean? You didn't have to have that man's face on the headstone. That's not that common of a thing. You don't have to have that. You don't have to show that painting of him. Those aren't necessary things to the plot to have. That was done to show that man's face. That's my issue with it. You know what I mean? 2, no one that wrote the first movie wrote anything in this movie. Tim Burton did not write Beetlejuice. He just directed it. He didn't write anything for Beetlejuice 1. He also did not write anything for Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. This is new writers. So no one that created that character wrote a fucking thing for this movie. So none of the people that wrote this movie have any standing to say that. Because it's none of it, it's not their character.
I get that, but still, if you're somebody, but even if you're people continuing to write this and continuing this story with these characters, you might still take that stance.
Yeah.
The character is innocent. The actor is guilty.
You do what they've done for decades.
Maybe they were like, okay, let's write. How do we write it in a way to where we still can do what we need to do as far as the character, the father of this family, but not have the actor in it. You know what I mean?
There's 2 ways, and they've been doing them in movies for decades. A, like I said, you write the character, you write the story the way it was. You do the little claymation thing, whatever. You just don't have that man's fucking face throughout the movie. You don't have it every chance you get after that. And you could have kept most of it the same at that point, just not the fucking child fucker's face. Every chance you got. Because that wasn't the writers. The writers did write, his face is on the tombstone. His painting is in the living. You know what I mean? They didn't write that. That's Tim Burton choosing to fucking do that. You get rid of that. You get rid of most of my fucking complaint with it. Because I'm mad at the claymation scene because it adds to the fact that I believe that Tim Burton wanted this man in the movie. And he couldn't. And he wanted it. So he tried to go around it the best he could. There is a chance that this man gets fucking money for this movie because his likeness is in it. So he might get a likeness right fucking credit and get money for it. Because of that. Because Tim Burton chose to fucking keep putting his face in this movie. So the writers had a way around it because I don't think the writers did it. And then two, the other way they could have done it, which is the most time-honored Hollywood tradition that's ever existed. You recast. Have just a different motherfucker. We've been doing that since movies were a thing, since they started doing sequels to anything. The second they started having any type of serialization in movies and television, you do a recast. That's simple. Have the character, have him in the underworld, have him be an actual major part of this movie. Because it's just not the child fucking motherfucker that was in the first one. I mean,
cool. And I get some of that. And I think that, I don't know, I feel like you'd have to talk to Tim Burton to find out, to say he wanted this man in it. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to make anything that strong. Did he want the man in it or did he just want the character in it? I think, and I don't know if he feels, especially if he knows why this person is not in it. It feels, I don't know if I want to accuse him of just wanting this child predator in it so bad that he put him in claymation and he wanted the man who is the child predator in it so bad that he put him in claymation and then had him in two scenes in the movie, had his face in two scenes in the movie. I don't know if I would make it that strong of a claim. I feel like you'd have to talk to Tim Burton about it.
It's more than two scenes, though.
So I'm not going to do that.
They showed the headstone multiple times. I will. I am going to say that. I get why you're not, because you're doing probably the right thing, but I don't give a fuck. I want to say it because I feel it in my heart of hearts. Like right here. I feel it because, like I said, if you really wanted the character, just recast. I mean, it's that simple. You just recast. Like, I mean, it's just when Tim Burton, he said some of the stupid, boneheaded fucking things he said. And it's Hollywood. Since when has Hollywood really had a problem with rapists being in movies? They've done it for as much as they can till they get called out. That's typically whenever they stop is when they get called out. The guy we're talking about was in the fucking Deadwood movie in like 2018. All this shit happened in 2014. He was in the Deadwood movie in 2018. You know what I mean? They knew. People knew. It's just when they get called out on. It's typically when they stop. And I think in today's, like in 2024, you're more likely to get called out on it. And I think that's why they didn't. I mean, was it the director of Jeepers Creepers is also a convicted sex offender. He was convicted before he directed Jeepers Creepers. And still did Jeepers Creepers 3. Also, they knew. You know, like it's not. That's Hollywood, man. I mean, what is it that guy that was from that behind the dark side of the set or whatever? The fuck was that show? About the Nickelodeon shit.
Oh yeah, the dark side of. I don't remember what it's called, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Quiet on Set.
Quiet on. Yes.
A new set with. It's like that show, dude. That guy was like convicted of shit and was doing Disney shows like a year or two later. Like Hollywood just be Hollywood, man. And that's why because Tim Burton's from that kind of older school Hollywood. Tim Burton's also famously said, I don't want black people in my movies because they don't fit my aesthetic. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying that necessarily that means he's racist. I'm just saying that guy just doesn't always, have the best of intentions. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I don't feel the need to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I get it. I might be unfair in the way I'm approaching it, in the way I feel about it, in the way I might be targeting him about it. I might be unfair with that. And that would be a fair criticism of how I feel. I just got to go with it, though. And like I said, I got to speak my truth. I got to sing my heart's song.
Yeah. And I got to do the same, man.
Yeah, that's fair.
I want to be fair.
Yeah.
So I feel like I got to do that. It's
kind of like, whenever we did the Mario Brothers, you were talking about how you loved it and all this other stuff. But then at the end, you were like, when it came down to give it a score, you're like, I loved it, but it's also not necessarily a great movie. You know what I mean? Like, so you had to be fair to that situation with that. Like you had to be fair to yourself and still say you loved it. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I just felt sick with it because, like I said, it is technically two aspects of the movie, but they show that headstone so many times. I mean, there's a major plot point with Catherine O'Hara's character at that tombstone later in the movie with that motherfucker's face just right there. Like it's throughout the movie. And that's what bugged me. If it was like a once off, like I said, if it's just the claymation, I'd be like, I don't like it. I didn't like seeing that man's face, even if it was clay. But I probably could have moved on by the end of the movie. Because I didn't have to see that gross mug of a face. But I just kept having to see it. You know what I mean? Like I just kept having to see it. And I think
and I can understand
that's what
man,
ate at me.
Especially as strongly as you feel about it. So any reminder of it, anything that you saw of it, you're just going to be like, it's just more. And I was sitting there going, okay, he's not in the movie. I knew he wasn't in the movie. And I figured, okay, he's not in it because of everything that happened. Cool. And when I got in there and it was claymation, I went, okay, that was a way to show how he died without having him. So I'm thinking, okay, they found a way to have the character without having him. And then when I saw the face on the gravestones, it just didn't hit me like it did you, but I definitely understand where you're coming from with that. But all I was doing was, I wasn't saying, here's the better view and you're wrong about it. No, I totally respect those feelings. And I totally get if somebody else felt that way about the movie. But also, I understand from a creative standpoint, man, it's our character, man.
And that is where it gets tough. It really is. Like on that
It's
side of
really
it,
it's more complex, I think, than it seems. But that's all I was trying to offer to it.
From if like legitimately from a writing perspective, I get why infinitely that becomes a way more difficult situation. Because like you said, especially if it's your own story. Like you wrote the first movie and you're writing the second movie, and you're just like that fucking child fucking asshole. I get why you'd be mad, because you're just like, my character wasn't that.
Yeah. And is there any leeway to say, man, fuck that guy, man? He doesn't get to dictate what I do with this character. He doesn't get to dictate the story that I'm telling and what I do with this character. So fuck him.
Yeah.
We'll kill him off, but I'm going to kill him off our way. We're going to kill him off the Beetlejuice way, but he doesn't get to fucking dictate what I do with my movie. I get that side of it too.
I totally get that too. And I think,
fuck,
yeah.
I don't want to sit here and seem also like somebody who is neglecting what this man did. But I hope I'm making sense, because it's not really about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's not even what I'm talking about.
Exactly. You're not talking about like you really are talking about the character. And it's that rough thing that people have a hard time doing sometimes. You have to separate the actor from the character. They are not the same thing. It's the character is not a sex offender. The character, especially in the context of this movie, they were writing him as he was the normal person in the family. He was the loving one. While he was eccentric, he was the anchor for so many aspects of this family and all this other stuff. And none of that is the actor. You have this character that is supposed to be like the heart and soul of this family. And it was just 35 years ago happened to be played by a guy that ended up being a fuckhead. That becomes such a complex thing. But you had a Danny DeVito cameo in this movie. Just have Danny DeVito be the dad now. That's why I kind of don't give them credit for it. Is I'm just like, since when has Hollywood felt the overwhelming morality of not recasting?
Yeah, I think I would have preferred a recast.
And if your argument is, well, if we kept him alive and recasted him, then it still allows people to think about the old performance. Well, then it's back to your argument of, why did you have the gravestone? Why did you have the face? If it was about not having any reminders or not having the character anymore because of what that actor did, then why have any reminders? Which is what you're saying.
And I totally get that. I'm just saying, if you literally had Danny DeVito be that character, and you just shot a live action scene of Danny DeVito getting bit by a shark, and then it was Danny DeVito's face in a painting, and it was Danny DeVito's face in the gravestone, and it was Danny.
Might have been funny.
It is Danny DeVito walking around a half Danny DeVito. That shit's coming up to people's knees.
That would have actually been hilarious.
You know what I mean? And Danny DeVito being like the one going, I don't know where I need to go. I'm just half a body. Come on. There would have been literally the same amount of work as he did in this movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's such a big actor, and it's such a beloved actor at that point that to me, it softens it. It takes away that edge a little bit. Because it's Danny DeVito. You're just like, okay. Do you get what I'm saying with that? I think
I don't hate that idea. I don't hate that idea. But we're still in this section, so let me get to
you haven't even
the
said
actual recommendation. But yeah,
thing.
but really, honestly, the last thing I'll say about it, and this ain't a mic drop or nothing, but just honestly, I don't want a listener to feel like, if I liked this movie, that means I support a child rapist. And then but if I like this movie, then that means I am somehow condoning what the man did or something like that. I don't want to put that out there. I don't want it to seem like, and I'm not saying you were insinuating that, Sterling.
No,
but I don't want anybody to read in and make that assumption.
No, that's good. I'm glad you're saying that. That is a fair, like a stinger.
Disclaimer.
Yeah, at the end of this.
Yeah.
Just 100%.
Yeah, kind of like So and so all I was doing was pointing out how just like emotionally complex this shit is. Like, it's so fucking complex, man, when you're talking about, like,
I think
creatively what the character was and what the actor did.
I think there's a spectrum of what is an acceptable reaction to this aspect in this movie. And like, mine's the one extreme of completely just don't even acknowledge that man exists. That's my extreme of it. But I think the other side of it is just getting to the point, as long as you're not saying, I know he's a bad guy, but fuck, I wish he was in this movie. As long as you don't get to that, it's fine. As long as you're not saying, I wish the child fucker was in the movie. I won't get mad at you for having that reaction. You know what I mean? As long, just being like your reaction with the Jastin, or how you thought about it, that's perfectly fine. If anyone's just between you and me, perfectly cool. Because just the other side of it is just, I wish he was in it. And that is the one point of view I will not agree with, ever.
And to back you up on that, if I ever find out that Tim Burton has that view, then fuck it. I'm jumping on the train with you.
Jumping ship.
Yeah.
I'm jumping ship. It's as simple as that.
Anywhere in between those, like anywhere between you and me, though, it's perfectly fine. You're not a bad person for just being like, do I love it? No, but it doesn't ruin the movie. That's perfectly fine. My point of view is with it, I was physically revolted every time I saw his face. And so when I'm watching a movie and I get physically revolted several times, it's going to mean I don't like it.
Yeah, it ain't going to get a good score.
It's not like it's a Saw movie where you kind of want it.
No, not that. You don't want that kind of.
I don't want to go into a comedy getting physically revolted.
And that's fair. Like, you're going to have people who can't separate, who aren't going to be able to separate and go, well, the character, the actor, blah, blah, blah. No, there are people that are going to be like, they're one and the same. And that's fair too, because a lot of times we do just associate people. When you see Robert Downey Jr., you see Iron Man. When you see, you know what I mean? So I understand that it is not an indictment on people that look at it that way. But I just did also want it to be an indictment on people who may see it the other way. And that's it. Bam. But I think both viewpoints are fucking important. And I'm glad that we had this dialogue to express both of those viewpoints. Okay, but anyway.
I was about to say, you need to kind of do your recommendation.
Yeah, score, I need to do it. Sorry. That just felt really serious and needing to say things. But overall, like I said, I'm not super high on this movie. I think it's fine. I think it delivered on the Beetlejuice stuff. I like what it did with some of the characters. I like some of the character journeys. I did like Jenna Ortega. I did like her, Heather. I really liked her journey in this. So that was one of the people that I really thought that I really did like. So with all of that, I think it's a fine movie. I would recommend it. Especially if you're a fan of Beetlejuice, I do recommend it. So we'll go 70 slobbering Danny DeVito's out of 100.
Official Cinescore is a 43. I fucked the curve on that one. Spoilers?
Yeah.
Yep. Spoilers.
I do have to agree with you guys. I like Jenna Ortega. She was fine in this. You know? I thought she was actually one of the better written characters in this movie. I get that there is an air of, or an aura of silliness, some campiness to the Beetlejuice universe, but like, she's the only one that felt like a reasonable ass human being. Like, just reasonable. Like, I do agree with you, Heather. I did not like Winona Ryder's characterization in this movie. It was her dynamic with, what's his name? Jastin.
Thoreau.
Yeah, that fucking guy. Just the fact that she's just so easily manipulated at every conceivable twist and turn throughout this movie. I was rather put off by that. Like, it didn't feel like the defiant, just, I don't want to say self-assured, but like more self-aware character that was in the original Beetlejuice. Like, yeah, she was a little bit manipulated by Beetlejuice in that movie, but that's, she was a child in that movie. That was kind of the point. That, he was manipulating a child and all this stuff. But like, I don't know. She was a doormat through most of this movie. And I want better for Winona Ryder.
I know. Yeah. It just kind of, I'll wait. But yeah, it kind of reduces her character a lot in this, is what my take on it is.
I mean, if you got thoughts about this specific thing, go ahead. I mean, we're already talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where, like, it's like you said, in the original one, she was a very, I would say maybe self-assured is maybe the right word. Like, she was just very, very clear and sure of what she believed and how she felt about things. And she was very opinionated in her own right with how she was about things. And it just felt like, and again, like, I know people can change, you know what I mean? Like, people change. And so you can become a different person, especially after you're 16 years old. But I feel like she wasn't even that way as a 16-year-old. So it was interesting to see her go from this, like, very, like knew who she was and made no apologies for the type of person she was, to being this person who is now essentially, like, I want to say it felt like she was just very gullible and very optimistic and just all of these things that it just didn't feel like the same character. It didn't feel like it was a progression of the same character. It just felt like they rewrote Lydia as a character to me, because I'm also like, it just makes her seem not intelligent. She was very intelligent. So it makes it feel not intelligent when she just is, like, believing this guy, like, he didn't even believably love this woman. And maybe it was like she just didn't want to, like, acknowledge that. That could also be it too, where she's just like, I know that this might not be real, but, like, I'm just, I just want to be with somebody and I know him and whatever. But I just feel like she just did only what he wanted. And also her being like a sellout, which they made a joke about in the movie, but like, kind of doing the job she did in the manner she did it, I feel like is not something Lydia would have grown up to do, especially if you think about how attached she was to Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis's characters in the first movie. Like, they were super important to her, very significant. They were kind of like family to her. So I feel like it wouldn't have made sense for her to be okay doing this job she was doing like this. And again, like, she went through a lot of trauma and tragedy since then with her ex-husband and all of that. Like, so yes, there's things where she's like, you know what, I'm just going to do whatever it takes now to just provide for my family. Also valid. But yeah, it just feels like they reduced her to being somebody that's just like a yes man. That's just like, okay, whatever you want, that's fine. Like, it made it feel like she didn't have a mind of her own when that was very much part of her character in the original. So yeah, that's just kind of what bothered me about it, because I wanted more of like the sass with her daughter that I expected because of just how her personality was. I feel like it was going to be like, you remind me of me when I was younger, and like just kind of like the sarcastic and like witty dynamic that Catherine O'Hara had with Winona Ryder in this. That's what I wanted for Winona Ryder and Jenna Ortega's characters. Like, I just felt like they were going to have a witty back and forth because they were so similar to each other. And they weren't really with how she was written in this one.
Yeah, and with some of that too, you can do it in a little bit of a way where it is a little bit of both, because I get why they wanted to have some estrangement between Jenna Ortega and Winona Ryder. You know, but we can kind of step away from some of the tropes and the stereotypes in movies where they're just so unalike that they fall apart. You can also have estrangement because you're both too alike. You know, just two stubborn assholes that just butt heads. So they're estranged because of that. That's also a realistic thing. I know this because that is one reason why I haven't talked to some of my family members in a very long time. Like, I didn't talk to one of my sisters we talked maybe 3 times in 10 years. And a lot of it's because we have issues with each other and we weren't working them out. And why is that? Because we're both stubborn assholes. We weren't going to reach out to the other one. We weren't going to open up a dialogue to fix anything because we're both stubborn. And if we actually just sat down and talked, like the last time we did, we'd actually probably be okay. I'm actually fine with that sister now. We opened up a line of dialogue, but why did we not talk for so long? We are cut from the same cloth. And that's what caused the estrangement. We had an issue and we never resolved it because both of us thought it was the other person's job to fix. They were the one that fucked up, not me.
And see, that feels like what the dynamic between Lydia and her daughter should have been, because Lydia could be like, no, you're the one who's being a ridiculous teenager and just mad at me because you miss your dad. And she could be like, well, I miss my dad and you never talk about it. Like, it feels like that makes more sense as the dynamic given the character of Lydia in the first film.
Do you have something with the Jastin? You're the only person that hadn't weighed in on the subject.
Well, I was just like, do I just wait on my section or do I?
I mean, if it's about this, you might as well just chime in now.
I don't know. I guess I just saw things a little differently. Like, I'm definitely not the same person that I was when I was 6. I mean, I'm trying to think, like, what was I doing when I was 16? I mean, some things are still intact. I mean, I guess I still play video games. I was doing that when I was 16. I still have some similar interests, maybe. But man, when I was 16, I was, super churchy, like God-fearing, like chunky kid, sheepish, afraid to talk to people, kind of just was this person who was really just trying to please parents, please authoritative figures, please, my life, a lot of my life back then was just about pleasing people. And now you look at me and I'm all like in shape. I wrestle in a ring and yell at people all the time. And like, I'm always talking about like believing in yourself and self-motivation and self this and self that. And like, I did kind of, in a lot of ways, it's a complete 180 from the Jastin I was in my teens, in high school, and everything like that. And I only said all that to say, not that you guys are wrong, but like the way I saw her character was, there were a couple of things going on. I think that she was that way because that was the arc. That was what this character, those were the roadblocks that they put in front of this character that she ultimately has to overcome by the end of it, is what I saw it as. I didn't really see it as, oh, this is a character that is completely changed and I don't like this and this is just not who she would be. I felt like this was definitely a character where the environment changed her. You know what I mean? She had this gift to be able to see ghosts and stuff like that. And could a person like that then could I see a person like that commercializing that and somehow using that to make money, and on some level, I'm sure she felt like she was helping people because she actually can. It wasn't like this was a TV show where everything is fake and nothing is happening. She can actually see ghosts. She can talk to the dead. We know that she could do this. So I feel like, could I see a person like that commercializing this ability? Probably so. Maybe a situation could happen to where maybe a person like that is making money off of this. And then if you do that lifestyle, that change, that environment, I could see that change in you. And then on top of that, how much of it was also compounded with her husband died. And I think that changed her too. A lot of this movie was about dealing with the trauma of death and overcoming that. And so I feel like the estrangement from her daughter was a direct reaction to two things. It was because of her abilities, and she probably also felt alone in that way too. She felt like she was the only one that could do this, but by the end, the daughter can too. So that sort of established a connection with them later in the film. Now they both have this same ability. There's more relatability, but I could also see Lydia being this person who felt really like alone in that way. She's the only person who can see these people. And then on top of that, the trauma of Beetlejuice, which is why she kept seeing him, which is why he kept appearing. There was real childhood trauma there too. So could a person not deal with these things or find outlets that are not necessarily healthy or make some choices that are not necessarily the right ones? And then, yes, I could see that happening. And then by the end, she understands her error in those ways. She overcomes that, and her daughter do get closer. So I guess I don't see it the same way. I can't knock the film and say it's an inconsistency when I feel like, honestly, it was a story element for this character to grow and have to overcome to arrive by the end of it. I saw it more as that than I did anything else. So that's kind of just, I guess, where I stand on it.
I mean, that's fair. It's just like, I don't know. It just didn't ring true. And I think maybe like I get that it's a characterization, like the Justin Thoreau character. It's a style, it's a characterization, it's a, you know, those things. It's just, I think because of the style in which they had him be the liar felt so over the top and unbelievable. It is hard for me to have the skeptical character that was her in the first movie just eating up every word he said. You know what I mean? Just accepting everything he said at every turn. You know what I mean? Like that just felt weird. And I get that, yeah, it's supposed to be like, oh, there's some codependency issues and all these things and PTSD from some of the stuff. It's just it.
And he's the rebound. You know, she lost her husband. She's trying to move on, and she thinks, by accepting this man, this other man, that's moving on. But it wasn't, right? Like that was the problem. Her instruments for moving on were the wrong ones. You know, kind of avoiding the relationship with your daughter and drowning yourself in work, which is drowning more into him because he was associated with that. And then looking at him as, oh, this is this other man that in order to move on from that husband that died, I need to, you know, I need to accept this other man. This is good for me. Having another relationship is healthy. Moving on is healthy. You could just see how maybe a person could rationalize this. Maybe not so much how over the top he was. Maybe no real man is going to be acting like this, but we are in a Beetlejuice universe. So obviously, of course, he's going to act like this. But yeah, I could see a woman doing this. I could see a man doing this. I gotta move on. You know, my wife died. I gotta get out there. I gotta try to accept another relationship. And maybe you jump in it too fast, or maybe you don't read what you should have. You know, because part of it is your grief is controlling your decisions.
Yeah, and I mean, and I do think you make some good points with that, and I definitely can't disagree with you on it. I think for me, maybe what it is like, yes, this is a movie that deals a lot with death, and particularly in this movie, there is a lot of death for them to deal with and to manage and all of that. But I guess because it's also Beetlejuice and it's like a silly movie, it's supposed to be funny and whatever. I guess I feel like that the characterization of Lydia, it could have been like, there could have been so much more of like humorous potential with her personality being more like it was in the first one, with her also having a daughter that's just as stubborn as her. Like, I just feel like there was more potential for like a silly, funny storyline where you could still have the heart behind it and still have that moment of them reconnecting and like resolving their issues and stuff like that. But like it kind of like the, you know, like I said, Catherine O'Hara's character with Lydia, where it's just that like, you know, she'll take jabs at her and be like, oh yeah, we got along so much better after you sold out, like stuff like that. Like that was funny, and that lent itself really well to this movie, I think, because it's kind of like a morbid take on stuff also. You know, it's that like dark humor type of thing that I guess I just feel like doing Lydia's personality slightly different or slightly more like an evolved version of how she was done in the first movie, I just feel like made more sense for the tone of what this movie was, maybe. So, and maybe that's why I noticed it, or why that specifically her characterization bothered me in this movie. But to your points, I do think, yes, of course, like you can grow and you can change. I'm certainly not the same person I was at 16 either. So I completely get what you're saying with that. But I guess for the sake of this movie being like a dark comedy type of thing, I guess I just expected they would do her character a little bit differently than that.
Cool. And either way, I get it. You know, anytime there's a sequel, sometimes it's good to change the character, but sometimes too many changes can make you feel like, okay, I don't even recognize this person that I'm seeing.
Yeah.
So I totally get that. Another thing that I wanted to add to it, just from like a creative standpoint, maybe also the fear is that if she is too much like how she was in the first movie, then she's just like the Jenna Ortega character. Or if she is like that, why do you need the Jenna Ortega character? So maybe there was also a fear of, would they be too similar? Would they be too similar? Like, would maybe the whole point of the Jenna Ortega character was to have that, was for her to have that younger Lydia feel, whilst Lydia going through a different journey herself. But because you have Jenna Ortega there, that maybe is supposed to fulfill the rebellious, kind of dark youth that we had in the first movie. So that could have also been the strategy as well.
And that's fair. And it's funny because like my first like comparison I thought of was, unfortunately, John Cena's character in the Fast and Furious movies. How he was literally a night and day difference in the type of person he was from one movie to the next. That's just kind of, to me, like, not as an extreme version of that, but it was something like that for me, where I was like, this doesn't feel like Lydia. This is weird, you know?
Oh, I definitely.
What do we do? Whose turn was it?
No, we were just kind of going.
Still Sterling's.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
We were just dialoguing.
Yeah, okay.
Going. Oh, okay.
No, we were just talking about, like, I brought up the thing and we just, went from that.
Cool.
Another thing that really bothered me, I've got lots of things that bother me about this movie. That weird misogynistic undertone when it came to Beetlejuice's ex-wife. Because they were just like, oh yeah, it's the ex-wife, the soul sucker. She'll just walk around sucking souls because she's the ex-wife. I was just like, that is such a 1978 sitcom joke. It just kept going on. I was just like, it's so dumb. She really was
a battle axe of a wife.
Yeah, like she just battle axe. She was just walking around and just sucking the souls out of people. No rhyme or reason. Like, I know that the whole plot was she was searching for Beetlejuice. Nah, she wasn't. She was just walking around and sucking souls and came across him. Like, that was just a mess. Just walking around. Like Danny DeVito's character, why'd she need to suck his soul? Made no sense. And then what about that dry cleaner man? What did that dry cleaner man ever do to her? He just existed, and she just walked into his dry cleaners out of nowhere and sucked his soul.
I think that's how she eats and stuff. It was supposed to be like how she lives, right? Like, wasn't she they said she was a part of a cult?
Soul-sucking cult.
Soul-sucking thing?
That's whatever. But then also, like, she did that and she went and got a wedding dress. She is from the 1400s? Because there was plague shit, right?
Yeah.
Since like the 1400s. You know what they didn't have? It's just everyday life back in the day then? Wedding dresses wasn't a thing. So, like, she wouldn't even know. She's been torn up into pieces for centuries. And she's just like, let me go get a wedding dress. Not a thing. So I don't even buy her motivations. I don't know. It was just a weird, tired joke that it just got so annoying as the movie went. Because they're just like, oh, yep, it's the ex-wife. The soul sucker. Oh, my God.
Oh, man.
Like,
the scene where she put herself together was badass.
No, that's fine.
I loved that scene. Absolutely loved that scene. And Monica Bellucci was killing it. I thought she was. I thought she was. The acting was good as that character. But
I hope
I
so.
agree that she wasn't explained well.
Yeah.
What is a soul sucking cult? What do they do? Will you become that? Is this your means for survival? Does it make you stronger? It didn't seem like it. It just felt like like nourishment or enjoyment.
She
maybe?
needed
I
to
don't
suck
know.
Beetlejuice's soul, because if she sucked his soul, she lived forever. She's kind of already living forever, so I don't get it. But like, is it because
I didn't get that either.
Is it because they were married? Okay, but then they died. Technically, doesn't that mean the marriage vows ended too? Because it's till death do you part. So like, that would mean they're done. But then she still needed him for whatever reason. She needed him, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it felt shoehorned, dude.
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand either. I was like, wait, they're already dead.
It genuinely felt like Tim Burton wanted his new wife in a movie. Like, that's all it was. Like,
maybe.
And then, I'm not gonna lie, I hated Willem Dafoe in this movie. I hated him. What the fuck was that shit? Just constantly, you gotta be a cop. Gotta be an undead cop. I'm a cop. What's my line?
Was an actor.
I got it, Jastin.
He was an actor. He was an actor. He was a thespian.
I did think it was funny that they had that girl at like any given moment, like ready with his coffee. I thought that was pretty funny though.
I thought he was cool, man. I liked him. He was a thespian, man. We like thespians. Come on, man.
I don't know what a thespian is.
He's a thespian.
I just...
You weren't sitting there going, ooh, look at that thespian.
No, never once. Not once.
Not once.
No.
Damn, man. Man. What's wrong with me?
A lot.
I'm sorry.
Here's my question to you, Jastin. You can on just any given day pull out thespian out of your vocabulary, but saying Dr. Peppy is weird to you? What is this? Who even are you?
I can't do it.
So behind the scenes, Jastin has just been complaining because I sent him a little baby Yoda meme that's like, I like chicky nuggies and Dr. Peppy, because Jastin likes chicken nuggets and Dr. Pepper. And Jastin's just like, I am completely perplexed by this meme. What are chicky nuggies and Dr. Peppy? I can't possibly even context clues the fucking explanation of this, acting all fucking high and mighty about all this stuff, because they're going, but what about the thespians? Just fuck right off.
You what he was.
Right off.
I was just telling you what he was, Sterling. He was an actor. That's all I'm saying.
Who wrote your characterization, Jastin? Who wrote your characterization?
I don't know. They messed up. I don't know what they were doing.
But you say,
I demand a redo.
You say Dr. Peppy. And he just goes on a tirade for 8 minutes about how he's not a child and he uses real words, but then he'll follow it up with thespian.
That's true. I love you for it, Jastin, but I'm just saying, like, Dr. Peppy is not the craziest thing that would have come out of your mouth if you said it.
I guess so. I never looked at it that way, but I can't do it. I just can't. I can't. I have to have some kind of integrity, guys. I mean, I just
gotta have some dignity. Yes.
So there's got to be some decency to be in. That wasn't decent.
Thespian still on the other side.
That should not be the line where you drew that. The line of dignity. Thespian? Up here. Dr. Peppy? No.
No way. Oh, no way. Draw the...
I'm still laughing about the 18-minute like rant. Where it's like, what even is this meme?
So before our last episode, we got recording very late on that because Jastin, for just 30 minutes, was just dissecting this meme and how nonsensical it was, because he's like, why is Baby Yoda even here? And what is a chicky nuggie? You can't even, that's not even a thing that's ever been uttered in the history of human language. And he's just going off on a college level dissertation on how this meme just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But I say I don't like Willem Dafoe acting like a jackass for a movie, and he's like, "But that's come
on. I'm just telling you why he performed those mannerisms. That's all I'm doing. I'm just telling you the mannerisms because he was a thespian actor. That's all I'm saying. He's an actor.
Now, with that same voice, say Chicky Nuggy.
Chicky Nuggy.
See, it works.
No, it doesn't. It's terrible,
Justin,
guys.
Now say Dr. Peppy.
Unforgivable. It's unforgivable.
Justin, I hate to break it to you. Chicky Nuggy has never sounded more natural than in that voice you just said it.
No way. No way.
Just say it again, Jastin. Listen to yourself in your headphones while you say it.
Fucking nice.
See?
I like it. I've sounded too manly. I would need to sound more childlike if I say chicken nuggets.
Justin, I hate to break it to you. The way you're saying that does not sound manly. I'm not even one to prescribe gendered tonalities to phrases. And I'm still going to sit there and say, that's not manly. That's non-binary at most.
What? If you walked into a room and somebody was like, get out of here. I'm an actor. What are you doing in my room? I'm an actor. Get out of here.
I would probably say
That's
something like,
manly?
I'd probably apologize to them for assuming their gender. Because that's not even mask presenting, bro.
Really?
Nah, like I said, that's not non-binary at best.
Okay. I don't know.
Sorry.
Maybe
my rant is over.
Or maybe a gender-neutral construct of some sort. Like you were a golem. Like you were an inanimate object brought to life.
A golem.
And we're a golem.
An inanimate object. A golem. Well, maybe I needed to sound that way to you. Maybe I just felt compelled to say it that way because I knew you would understand it better in that tone. You know, but I'm trying to be a proud William Dafoe. I'm trying to imagine him sitting here, hearing you say such horrible things about him. And I could just imagine him sitting there going, how dare he?
What did I say that was that horrible? I just said it was tiresome.
I'm a fuss.
It's just unnecessary.
This man is sitting, I was sitting there fuss-being, and this man is getting mad at me. I'm an actor. I could just see him sitting there steaming, just fuming at what you're saying about him because he tried so hard at the film. And he's like, man, how dare
Yes, I have
Sterling?
seen that man try in a movie. He was not trying in this movie. Don't even act like that. Jastin, you've seen this man act. Do not tell me he was trying in this movie. He was collecting a paycheck and having fun. That's fine. I'm not hating on him for it. He got money, had fun. Sure.
It's no Green
They might
Goblin.
have told him that.
You know?
They might have said, we want you to you're an actor. We need you to act like you having fun.
So you're saying he
You
didn't
need to
even have fun?
portray
You're saying
another
he didn't even,
motherfucker having fun.
So you're saying he didn't even actually have fun? He was just there getting a paycheck and miserable? Because he had to act like he was having fun?
Yeah, they want him to act it.
Because he's a
We want you to
thespian.
portray another person having fun.
It sounds like you're saying Prince Caspian, but with a lisp.
Caspian. I guess it is kind of like, who would talk like this? I don't know. You know me, I just do stuff. Sometimes you got to let Jastin. You know this, Sterling.
I'm saying you kind of
You
just
know
sound
this.
You sound like a middle-aged version of whatever Yoda's race is. So you just sound like an older baby Yoda. You're not
That's what
old
they-
like Yoda. You're like middle-aged Yoda. Because we've only ever seen
That's what
baby
people
Yoda
say.
or old like Yoda. You're like 28 Yoda.
But see, I feel like he would be like, Thespian, I am,
Oh, that's
Thespian, I am.
That's
That's
old.
pretty good.
That's old man Yoda.
That's old man Yoda.
That's old man Yoda.
I can't do it. I don't know what he would. I don't know.
Because you already did it, Jastin. That's all I'm saying.
out. I'm out.
I just, whatever. I just, if they cut that character from this movie, I would have been just fine.
No, Willem.
Okay, sure, he can be in it. He could not be in it. I'm not swayed either way, really. I don't care. But I'll say this, and maybe this is why. There is like 97 storylines in this fucking movie. They needed to trim some of that shit off. It's not an overly long movie. It's not an overly complicated movie. There's just so many storylines. You got the daughter storyline, the mom storyline, the other mom storyline, the dad's dead storyline, the other dad's dead storyline, the new stepdad storyline. You got the Beetlejuice storyline. You got the Beetlejuice ex-wife storyline. You've got the cop chasing Beetlejuice's ex-wife's storyline. Calm the fuck down. You've got the ghost boy storyline. The fuck is this movie? You've got the weird alcoholic priest storyline. What the fuck is going on in this movie? There's just so many moving parts. I'm just saying, you could have cut a couple of 9, 10, 12 things. It's still just been fine. I mean, all I'm saying is I'm not surprised that this movie was written by the same people that wrote Smallville. I mean, how many times do we have to deal with the Lana and Clark storyline? Come on. If you've watched Smallville, you know what the fuck I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Oh. I'm just saying. Like, Willem Dafoe's character felt like the third time Lana and Clark tried to be together. It's not as bad as like the 9th time. But you know what I mean? It's like the third time where you're like, okay, we get it. Move the fuck on. Anyway, I'm done with this movie. What do you guys got? What do you talk? What do you two? Say some words.
I mean, I think like I said before, my biggest complaint really was just how they characterized Lydia, and also the whole thing about showing the dad a lot. I feel like the best solution for the whole grandfather storyline thing would be Catherine O'Hara can tell the story about how he dies. You don't necessarily even need the animation or the claymation thing to be shown to just tell the story of like, yeah, he was in a plane, the plane crashed, he got, eaten by a shark. You could just tell that story without any visuals and that would have been fine. And then maybe, just for the sake, if you have to, you can maybe show like a picture of him at the service, right? Like, because that's a common thing where you have like a picture of the dead person at the service and then leave it at that. And then from there, it can just be when you see him in the land of the dead, half eaten. Because I was like, you know what? That was actually a good solution for it. Because it's a person, but you're not seeing the person, but you know who that is based off of the story we know of how the granddad dies. So I think that would have been it. You tell the story of how he dies, picture at the service, and then half-eaten man for the rest of the thing. I think that would have serviced that storyline enough. You know what I mean? So like, I am kind of with you more, Sterling, on the whole. They really did show him a lot and talked about him a lot. And it became like a Catherine O'Hara wants to go and find him and things like that. Like all these things. But again, also to your point, Jastin, like I get that it is tough because you're supposed to be thinking of this person as a character and not the actor behind him. But I think that that's also why not showing him as much would have served that purpose better, because then it's like, okay, so in my mind, if I'm not seeing the man associated with him, I can still think of the character and all the character did without seeing him as much, if that's who this person that acted in the role is. So I just feel like that would have been the best way to do it. Or actually, I think a recast would have been kind of cool. You know, if you're going to have him in this movie, it would have been interesting to see who they recast in that role. But yeah, those were my two biggest like elements with this that I wasn't a fan of. But again, like I did like most of the storylines that were happening with Astrid. I really liked her whole thing of meeting this boy and like not realizing that he's a ghost and that his family's a ghost, you know? So like all these things where she's like, oh, I don't believe in any of this. And there's elements there where you can tell at certain points, like, yeah, obviously he's a ghost and his parents are dead too. Like you can kind of in moments figure out that that's what's happening. Right. But I liked where that was. I feel like the build up to it could have been a little bit better. You know, they could have just led up a little bit more to them getting to know each other before he's like, hey, I would love for you to go to the the land of the dead with me and bring me back to life and all these, you know, like I feel like they could have done a little bit more build up of them building a connection. But again, that's just being nitpicky because I just prefer that storyline more than some of these other ones. And I also really liked this story about her dad. And Janet Ortega, like I said, I feel like she's just like this shining star in pretty much anything I've seen her in for me. Like I feel like she's always the character that stands out in things. And I really did enjoy the scene in this when they're at the funeral and Astrid's talking to Lydia about like, you know, why is it that you can see all these other ghosts, but you can't see my dad, the one person I actually care about seeing, and you can't make that happen kind of thing. And obviously seeing that that's part of the bitterness and part of that division between them is that aspect of things. I think that was a really good conversation to have in this movie. And I think it was just a really well done scene because you start to understand a little bit like why there's this tension between them and what they've gone through together. And that's why they're at this stage in the relationship that they're at. So that I think that part was done really well. And again, like what Sterling said, like Astrid is the most like human seeming person in the entire thing. Like she just feels more relatable. She feels more like fully formed as a character than a lot of these others. I think Justin Theroux was funny. Like he was so silly in this. He was so over the top ridiculous as the fiance that he serviced what he was supposed to for that role. Like he was just this, he was so unserious that you just can't even like, you don't expect anything else from him. And I'm fine with that. I'm just not fine with how Lydia just refused to see it. But again, his character, like he's the one that you know is going to be the bad guy at the end of all this. So, and then Catherine O'Hara, it's hard for me to say anything bad about Catherine O'Hara. I just love everything she does. But I would say that this, I wasn't a big fan of the whole wedding church scene where everybody's singing, you know, like being possessed and singing. I didn't actually like that as much in this one. I think it's so good in the first one and it's so iconic when they're at the dinner table and they all start singing Deo. That is so iconic and amazing. And they wanted to recreate that magic. It's hard to do that because of how iconic that is and just how well done that scene is. But I also just don't feel like the song choice was right for it if they wanted to make it like such a like iconic moment of this movie. I just feel like they should have gone with a different song choice probably. But it also lasted 45 minutes. Like it just felt so much longer when that was such a short scene. And you're like, no, I wanted more of that. That was so fun and hilarious. And in this one, it just went on too long, but it felt one pace, of like, you're not like, oh, what are they about to do next? Because it just felt like one tone because of how long it went and the song that they chose with it. But I will say there are moments in that, like when you see Beetlejuice just like crying at the song playing while he's at the altar. Like I thought that was like pretty funny and well done. And then when he's in that just reminds me of when earlier in the movie when he's like playing guitar and he's singing, I'll be right here waiting for you. I thought that was funny too. But I think that they really wanted that scene in the church for the wedding to be like the big moment of this movie, it felt like. And it didn't feel like the climax of the movie because it actually was just the least interesting thing that was happening with everything else that led up to that moment. So I think that probably could have been done or executed in a better way. I just feel like Beetlejuice wasn't his chaotic self as much. He was still very chaotic, but I just feel like it would have been, they should have just done him a little bit more chaotic than like what they gave him in this, especially because he has more reason to be all over the place in this. He's got his ex-wife looking for him. He's trying to marry Lydia again. He's got all these things going on now, and he's like more toned down, which was weird. But I still think that Michael Keaton did a good job with that. And I am glad that they at least had a line of dialogue about her being like, yeah, the 600-year age gap was a little too much for me. Like, I did appreciate that they at least threw that line out there because that is the one thing about Beetlejuice, not the one thing, but the big thing about Beetlejuice that was not something enjoyable. Even though everything about how he does Beetlejuice is so good, him being just so creepy in that way keeps you from being like, oh, I love this character, So yeah, at least they kind of addressed that a little bit. But yeah, I just think overall it wasn't necessarily more of the same in every regard, but the beats that they wanted to take in this movie were more of the same and not as effective for the most part. And that's why I kind of wish they would have done more with Astrid's storyline with the boy that she fell for that was a killer. That was more interesting and that was different and that was new. And that just kind of would have been a more interesting thing to follow for longer than we did. But other than that, yeah, I think the Soul Train idea was stupid. Like, I didn't like it because I'm like, but it doesn't really make sense to have it because like, are these people just on it forever and they get off and on whenever they want? So they just never go to their destination? Like, cause it felt like all of them were like, yay, I'm still on this train, or yay, I get to go on it again. Is kind of what it felt like. And that was just like, what's the purpose of the Soul Train if nobody ever actually gets off of it and you're just all partying for, the whole train ride to the great beyond? Like, it was, I get that they were just trying to make a pun about it, but I just didn't like that because I was like, that's too silly. I just don't like it. But yeah, that's all I got.
Jastin, what about you?
All right. So yeah, I agree that I do feel like in this movie, there were a lot of different plot points and characters. And I do agree that a little bit of streamlining of some of those things, or maybe some cutting of some of those things, because I too did like the storyline with Astrid and the boy. And yeah, I think it needed one or two more scenes of them getting to know each other or anything like that. It felt like they had one scene where they kind of were getting to know each other, and then all of a sudden he's bad, which I didn't hate any of that, but I did feel like it happened too quickly. And I'm thinking maybe you could have given them more scenes if you didn't have a detective, then this, then all these other things kind of going on in the movie. though I kind of get what they were trying to do as far as expanding, I guess you could say, the undead, the purgatory, whatever this is called, the dead zone universe or whatever. And I think I even remember us talking about in the other film, where are the people to help regulate all of this stuff that's happening? Like, I think one of the arguments we made in the other one was that if this is so pivotal, if this book, if what these people are doing is so pivotal, and it's like, could in this world, if certain people are brought back or come back and all of this kind of stuff, we were like, well, who's regulating this? Like, where are the people that keep order of this or stop people from like illegally coming over or going back to the actual world and stuff like that? So I do understand the need to have a detective or a police, or to seem like there is somebody policing what is happening. And I guess they just thought, oh, we'll do it in a fun way and we'll have this detective and everything like that. But the other side of that coin is that if you didn't have that detective, maybe you could have given some other things some developments. So a lot of these other plot points felt like they either didn't get enough or the payoff was just so quick and simple and kind of like, okay. All that development, kind of like his ex-wife. You know what I mean? All that stalking, and she had a great scene where she puts herself together. I really, really liked that scene. I thought that was really cool. And the soul-sucking ability I thought was cool. The fact that she came from this cult, I was like, okay, she's from a cult and they suck souls. Man, that's some heavy shit. Let's learn more about that. We didn't. And then when she finally got to Beetlejuice, there wasn't like this epic encounter or anything. The worms just come and he's like, oh, olé. And then she just gets ate up by the worms, the sandworms. So that felt like that felt so anticlimactic after all of that chase and development and stuff like that. I thought maybe it'd have to be somewhere they're going to have to team up to stop her or something. Like, it felt like by the time she got to him, she was going to be super formidable. Like, she sucked up all these souls and, man, Beetlejuice is really going to have to Beetlejuice to beat her. And then it was just kind of like he did some silly shit and won, which I get that's Beetlejuice, but yeah, it was like, she's coming, she's a threat. She killed one of those little beady-eyed fuckers. What's his name? Ed or Ted? Bob. Yeah, Bob. My bad.
There's 28 of them with different names. You probably all said all names.
I liked Bob, though. Bob was tight, too. But again, there's another character and thing we were doing where
I didn't even mention
Bob had a
that
little bit of a journey.
Line. Like, it would have.
And the thing is that so, and like Bob, he even had a little journey. He's over here, he's over there. We had Bob's everywhere riding bikes and stuff. And we did all this funny stuff. But then ultimately, he just gets soul sucked by her.
Bob was a real one. And you just went out so poorly.
Yeah, he just got soul sucked. But if all he was going to be is soul sucked, you felt like that could have just happened earlier. He could have just been walking down the hallway and got soul sucked. Oh, Bob, oh no. And that could have just happened, So I do feel like it had a lot of plot points and it had a lot of characters. But when you look at sort of the end game and how these characters got utilized, you just kind of wonder, if we had less of them, we probably could have made some of them feel more important. But what they sort of seemed like what they decided to do was have all of this stuff and then just do little funny bits with them. They each had like a funny bit or some scene that was kind of interesting or funny, or like when Beetlejuice is telling the story of him and his ex-wife. That was kind of fun. They each had a moment or two here or there, but ultimately what it culminated into did feel a bit underwhelming in some of those ways. Now, it didn't feel so underwhelming to where I cared a lot about it because these were minor characters. So it's like, it's a minor character, you know. At the end of the day, we care about Catherine O'Hara. We care about, we care about Astrid. We care about Lydia. We care about Beetlejuice. Those are the characters we care about. These other characters, maybe that's why, even though the some of those stories were underwhelming, it didn't hit me as hard because I was like, well, they're not really that important anyway. But if they're less important, then maybe treat them that way. Like, don't have them take up screen time that your more important characters could have used, is my opinion on that. So some of that I do agree with y'all with. But for the most part, man, I just thought the movie was funny, man. There were parts that I did laugh at with Beetlejuice. There were some gags where I thought they were fine and in the spirit of Beetlejuice. Some of the continuity from the first film, I did wonder, were they going to try to do a 180 with Lydia and Beetlejuice and just have them be like, somehow make them buddies in this and it'd be like a different dynamic. But I like how Lydia was suffering trauma from him. I did like that plot point. I did like how she kept seeing him and was like, he won't go away and all of that kind of stuff. I did like that. Also, I think the decision to have Beetlejuice still like head over heels and still like wanting her and still like have this desire to marry her and be with her does, I guess, kind of make him a little less rapey. Then the behavior in the first movie doesn't feel so predatory. 30 years later, he still wants her. He still has the hots for her. That continued. So maybe it kind of helped that not feel so predatory when she was just hella young. But in this, I'm glad that didn't transfer over to the daughter or anything like that, because then we would have been back in the same boat. So I'm glad at least he still just directed those feelings toward Lydia, and then he wasn't predatory towards any of the other women in it. So there was that, but I thought he was still his conniving, crazy Beetlejuice self. And I just think that Michael Keaton just does such a good job with that character that, a lot of silly stuff was happening, but it got some chuckles out of me. I wasn't laughing hysterically, but we were laughing, and I was there on a Tuesday. There were still quite a few people in the theater watching it, and they didn't laugh at everything. I didn't hear constant laughter. Some of the jokes landed, some of the jokes didn't, but when they landed, they did, and I think that, so to be fair to the movie, some of the comedy was working for people, more than it wasn't. And when we got to the end with the song, I do agree. I liked how the actors were portraying it. I loved how the facials that everybody was making, where they were looking around and you could tell that they were being forced to sing. All of that was still kind of in the spirit of what they did in the first movie and everything. But I agree with you that the song choice, I didn't know the song. I couldn't sing along, or I couldn't that other song, Hey, Mr. Tallyman, which I thought was cool that they played it at the funeral. I did laugh when I heard it at the funeral. But that song is recognizable and it, and it's such a song you're familiar with. This one wasn't. So it was one of those things where, although I was enjoying the zaniness of it and the performances of it, the song I didn't know. So it didn't hit the same. It didn't have that same kind of magic. I do think a familiar song would have helped it. And I do think it was a bit too long as well. There was a part where I thought it was going to end, and there was like a pause, and I think there was even some dialogue, and then he grabbed her again and they started going again, and I went, oh, we're still doing this. I think you just cut it at the half mark right there, and it would have been fine. I didn't hate the scene, but yeah, I get that it wasn't as magical as, I agree that it wasn't as magical as that first scene. But all in all, I think that the right people died and whatever. And although it was funny how Delia died with the snakes and everything, I didn't expect that. I thought if anybody was going to come back, she would, or they'd find some loophole or something, but no, she's dead. So it's funny.
They were also so nonchalant about that too. They're like, oh, I'm sorry. Well, come haunt us, come visit us. Like, they were just so chill about the fact that grandma died.
Yeah, that they were way more chill about that than they were about the dad died, which was like the whole part of this whole big story, the grief, their relationship, everything like that. And then the mom is just like, oh, well.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah.
So that's kind of, or was it just because she died in such a stupid way that they kind of were like, how do we have them be real sad when she had those snakes? Just, I don't know. That's I guess it's just all weird either way. It's weird, dark humor, but I wonder if it should have been more on the dark than the humorous side. It's just, I don't know, Beetlejuice shit. But overall, the ending was fine. I wasn't mad at it. It was, I just kind of walked out going, all right, that was a okay little Beetlejuice movie. And that's ultimately how I felt. No big feelings about it. No big emotions about it. Just a bunch of thespians doing some acting. You know what I'm saying? That's all I got.
I hate you so much sometimes. Just saying. Why you gotta be like that?
The confusion. He's like, what do you mean?
That's what they are, Sterling. That's what they are. You can look up those words.
Oh, I don't need to look up the words, Jastin. I get the words. Oh. I don't get you.
I don't either. So we're in the same boat on that. That's the one thing we can agree on. This whole podcast. Oh, man.
That's all I'm saying. What are you?
I don't know, bro. I don't know. I'm a person that doesn't like no nugget terminology that I can't comprehend.
But you can.
That much.
You can comprehend them, Jastin.
It's tough.
What's tough?
Chicken nuggets.
Perfect.
No. Don't lie to this man.
That was my normal voice. My normal voice is a problem now. I can't speak.
Jastin, don't lie to us.
That was my normal voice. It's my normal little old voice. My normal vocal. That's all it was. My normal tone, accent, and diction. That's all it was.
Just respect us as people.
Now I'm being disrespectful.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
You coming straight at me with lies, motherfucker.
Damn. Maybe I'm a thespian after all. Maybe I just be acting. Oh, God.
Yeah, somebody being a liar again.
Anyway, are we done with this?
Yeah, I'm
Is it
done.
over?
Yeah, I'm done too.
Yeah.
On that note, thank you guys for listening to this episode of the CinemaSlayers podcast. Check us out on the internet at www.cinemaslayers.com or CinemaSlayers podcast on Facebook, cinema_slayers on Threads, Instagram, Letterboxd, CinemaSlayers pod on TikTok and YouTube. Give us 5-star rating and review. We really appreciate it. Really help us out. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your friends' family, tell your family's friends, and most of all, tell those dear sweet mothers, because dear sweet mothers love
Ice-T tearing down John Wayne statues.
It's very true.
Yep.
They love that shit.
Yes.
Shout out to Plug Migo and Mundo Ochoa for our theme songs and logos, respectively. Remember, here at the CinemaSlayers podcast, we're pro slut, pro Sydney, pro naked. You. Yes, you Cinefans. You are Knuff. Follow our mantra: justice for Chris, justice for Todd, justice for stunt people. I think that's it. Anything else?
I don't think so.
No, sir.
And as I always in the TikToks, the YouTube videos, and more importantly, this podcast, just remember, according to Jastin, Moon Knight is the best picture winner.
This is something special. I'll say that much.
Was it? A lot, very, very emotional at the beginning. And then we sort of slid in, just slid in, kind of settled in there at the middle and the end.
I wouldn't say emotional. I'd just say accurate. Fuck this shit. Fuck the juice.
I'm just like, maybe fuck it, but maybe not. Maybe.
I mean, all I'll say
we might
is I'm not endorsing one political side over another or one candidate over another. I think if you know me, it's pretty obvious. You already know my thoughts on it, but I'm just saying this. Last night at the debate, Kamala Harris almost called Trump a motherfucker. So, I mean, I'm just saying, I've never felt more seen by a president in my life. Just a presidential candidate at a debate almost just calling the other one a motherfucker. I'm just saying that made me feel good. It made me feel like I finally matter in this political Game of Thrones, if you will. So that was a good time.
Indeed.
Oh, and she should have said it. If she had said it, I wouldn't have got a Harris Waltz 2024 tattoo right then. I don't give a fuck. Like right on my knuckles or something.
I wouldn't blame you.
All right. We done? Let's be done. Later.